Oh gosh, Lisa, I have been following you, your success, your story. It is so fun to have you today. And I must say, I'm like obsessed with your accent. So everyone listening, and you're gonna fall in love with Lisa for a lot of reasons. One of the things I love about you is your authenticity, your willingness to call BS, and your stand for integrity. These are things, and in addition to the way that you have created such a successful, profitable, prosperous business as a global business strategist. And I just think for everyone listening, you didn't come from this. So let's just dive in. I'm so freaking psyched you're here today. Welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yay. Can we, like, for those who don't know you yet, let's like do a little backstory. Why don't you share? I know have you always been in Bedfordshire,
No,
England? Like,
no, I've traveled around the UK, lived in different places, but I actually grew up in on welfare in Lincolnshire. So it was it was hard. It was a struggle. There was poverty. There was generational poverty in my family. It had always been, and I ended up going. I got a scholarship to a private school when I was 11 years old, and got bullied the whole time I was there for being poor because everybody was rich, and it was a very prestigious school. And
mm,
so from then on, I just always felt like the poor one, the one with no money. And so when I left school as quickly as I could, no real qualifications, and just kind of got a job as an office junior and clawed my way up to, quite good positions, but never really making a lot of money. I ended up in like law and banking and trying all these different things. And in my 30s, there I was like 35 in banking and doing okay. Like if you looked at where I'd come from, people from where I come from would say, wow, she's doing amazing things. I was probably earning like $60,000 a year. So people thought I'd done well. And I then got pregnant with twins, and I was going through a divorce. And yeah, it was difficult, and suddenly realized that I was going to have to change a lot about my life. I hadn't expected to have kids, and so it was quite a shock. And I thought, well, I'll go back to work. When they're 5 months old, I'll go back to work, which anyone that hasn't been a mother thinks that is something, kids would just fit into their life. Anyone that is a mother realizes how ridiculous that is. And so I went back to work when they were 5 months old and realized there was no way that was going to be able to happen. I was just never seeing them. I had such a job that was like 5 a.m, 6 a.m till 10 o'clock at night. And so the only thing that I could do was go and try and find a job near where I lived, so I could at least see them before and after I left, and they weren't just in bed. And so that's what I did. But the only jobs going were office junior, admin assistant jobs. So I had to go like 15 years right back to the beginning. And, I was on like 20,000 from 60,000 with 2 more mouths to feed. And it was difficult. And it was while I was in that job that I thought, well, I need to supplement my income. Maybe I can have some kind of side hustle. And I didn't know anyone in business. No one where I comes from like have a business. No, it isn't even thought of. And so I had to really think about like what I wanted to do. And I thought, well, I'm going to try and have a business and just see if it works. And I chose wedding planning. So I became a wedding planner because it looks glamorous. It's not, but it looks it. And it was when I'd been doing that for a year. I had a new boyfriend at the time, and he said, well, let's see how much money you're making, because you are working every weekend, and I can see, you're doing 13 full planning weddings. And we had a look, and I was making what's the equivalent of $1.15 an hour. And I realized that I just didn't know anything about business. Like, you can't just do it. You have to learn some stuff. Otherwise, I was going to completely just be in poverty forever. I'd racked up this debt from, getting divorced and all the things that go with that, having 2 kids. And I was now 30,000 in debt. And well, in dollars, it was probably more like 45 at that point. And so I was like, okay, I either need to learn about business, or I need to just stop and realize that I'm always going to be living paycheck to paycheck, hand to mouth, like always in debt. And I thought, well, I'm going to give it one more big go. I'm going to learn everything I can about business. And I did. I went out there and I went to every free webinar that you can imagine about business. I read every business book. And within about 8 months, I'd turned that wedding business completely around to become one of the biggest, most well-known UK wedding planning brands for like urban couples in the UK. And we were making money, we were making a profit. We were only making around the same amount that I had made in my job, but that was a lot better than it was before. And in the wedding industry in the UK, you don't make much more than that anyway. So we'd done well. And then for about 2 or 3 years, I carried on doing that until 5 years ago, when I realized that so many people asked me for advice about how to start a business, any business. And I had this gift for just talking about businesses in a non-complicated way, no jargon, just do this, this, and this. I wouldn't say I was a coach. I didn't really ask people to reflect on anything. I just said, go and do these things. Let's see what that does. And it would work. And people would come to me saying, I've made a lot more money. And then I realized that actually that is the calling. That is the thing I needed to do, is help people make more money in their businesses with strategy, using proper strategy. And so this time, started the business 5 years ago, and everything worked. So in the first 6 months, I'd made over 100,000 in profit. In the first year, I'd made 220,000, but I wasn't feeling successful because I was doing everything one-to-one. I was absolutely shattered. I was like constantly working, still didn't see my kids because I was constantly working my own business, and realized that I needed to find another way. And that's when I started looking at different business models, passive income, and just started learning everything I could. Again, I knew that learning was the answer. And this time I paid for the learning. So I put in like 150,000 in just learning everything from the profit I'd made in the first year. So at the end of that first year in business, I was probably working 80-hour weeks and earning 220,000. At the end of year 2, I was working 30 hours a month and I was earning over $1 million. And that's when I realized I had the key, like this is the thing. And that's when I started teaching. And then, very quickly it tripled, and we've made now, I think it's 12 million in the last 5 years.
Okay, let's just take a moment to digest that your story is it's incredible. And I want to even we're going to end back up here, but I want to go back for a minute because growing up, first of all, growing up on welfare, you did not see this kind of success. And I'm just thinking of all the people that are, my listeners that write in or that share, that don't have that, they weren't raised in an entrepreneurial or a thriving mindset space. And your story is really powerful, Lisa, because you weren't raised with that. You were bullied for not having money, which is so upsetting. And I'm so sorry, although I'm sure there's a part of you that probably grew from that. Yet that is so, that would be traumatic. I can only imagine. And what I really heard is you just kept getting curious and asking, okay, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way, even with your wedding business, going back, learning, applying it. And so really amazing, just congratulations, because going from that place, I think before we even go into okay, what is the golden key? What did you figure out? Because I know everyone's like, what did you figure out? How do we do that? I do want to talk for a minute about the mindset piece and the beliefs, because somewhere you had to just either know or believe or take on, okay, obviously worthy of making money, comfortable, safe to make money. I know a lot of times when you have trauma with money like that, myself included, it takes time to really turn around those beliefs. So
yeah. And it did take time. It took
Yeah.
time. I think that changing my mindset around the money piece was one of the biggest things that I did.
Right.
Because for such a long time, I had these jobs, I was a lawyer, I was in banking, I even tried acting, and I wasn't really making the money that everybody else would have been with those jobs. And I kept telling myself, and I didn't realize I was telling myself this, but I definitely was. Now I look back, people from where I come from, they don't earn big money. People from where I come from don't hit 6 figures or 7 figures. That's not who they are. And so I had to do all of this work around kind of unlearning the things that I told myself for such a long period of time. Some of the things I told myself were that rich people were bad people, because you know, where in the school, the people that bullied me were rich.
Yeah.
And so that's what they seem to be to me. And, you know, where if I was in my council estate, you know, with my family, and somebody came past that looked rich in any way, nobody would go, oh, look at her, she looks amazing. Look at that lovely bag she's got. They would be like, oh, who does she think she is? You know, like she's what an awful person. And so in my head, that just meant that growing up, I had all this stuff in my head about like money's bad. It makes you bad. It turns you into a bad person and you don't want it. And yet I knew deep down that I really wanted it, but my subconscious was stopping me. I was self-sabotaging myself. I'm not spiritual or woo in any way, but I can totally see how I was self-sabotaging myself from making money, because I had a very negative opinion of what money was. And had to do a lot of work around that, around changing that. And I'm not very good at things like, people are quite good at things like positive affirmations, where you tell yourself something enough, you believe it. That, to me, I'm quite self-aware. So I always know that I feel like I'm conning myself when I do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I had to find evidence. So for me, my biggest thing was go find some people that come from a similar background to you that have made a lot of money, because then you can't keep using this anymore, because you can see someone that has. And actually, I found that really difficult. There was nobody talking about how much money they made that came from a place where I came from. And that is why now, you know, I put my bank statements online. I talk about how much money I make all the time. And people are like, why are you bragging? I'm like, no, it's not for you. It's for me. It's for that person that is looking for somebody from where they came from to see that it can be possible, it can be done. And I will always put it online, no matter how much slack I get for doing it. I'm going to do it because of that. But yeah, it was hard to tell you about. And I still have to work on it. This isn't something that went away. You know, when I hit 6 figures and wanted 7 figures, I was a completely different ball game. I had to do it all again. And even now, you know, different things come up and I don't realize it. For instance, I went on we hired a yacht for all of my friends this summer, like a massive super yacht. And I've always wanted to take all of my friends on a holiday, like around Greece. So we hired this yacht. And one of the things, it was really expensive. And one of the things was you tip the crew. And in England, we're not really used to the tipping thing. It doesn't really happen. But, you know, this is what you do. And I was like, okay, how much do I need to tip? And they were like, you need to tip around the kind of 15 to 20,000 pound mark. And I was like, okay. But they said, but you have to do it in cash. And I was like, okay. So I had to go into my bank the day before and say, hey, I need euros, but I need like 20,000 in euros. And they were like, what do you want it for? And I said, oh, and I stopped and I realized that I didn't want to say what I wanted it for because I would feel bad about it. And and actually I eventually said it's I have to give this money for a tip on a yacht. And straight away, how the other half live, it's all right for some, isn't it? And that's why I didn't want to say it, because I felt guilty that I was taking out money for that. And so it made me realize my money mindset work isn't done, because I wouldn't have cared if it was.
Oh my gosh, there is so much in that. And first of all, yeah, you can tell you're so self-aware, clearly, like in just hearing you. And it's interesting, right? Like, you know, just having like you get that response, right? And that response. And I think maybe for some men too, and I don't know, I'm not one, but I think for a lot of us, especially women who identify as women, there's this feeling of like, you know, you got to hide it, or, you know, shame, or like feeling badly. And then you get that comment. And so there's that piece of, you know, that little bridge of that work of being able to be with that and not make it mean anything. Or, right. I can understand that completely. Like, that's a great example.
It's tricky.
Yeah. You know, I think what's so fascinating to me is, you know, and some would say like, you're at 8 figures. What do you mean you still have mindset work to do? Like I think you're posting your bank statements, and honestly, I'm just going to call myself out as somebody who, I wouldn't say I grew up on welfare and poverty, but with a lot of, a lot of financial instability, and in a very affluent area. So like nobody had, you know, most no one had financial issues, and my dad really struggled. And it was one of those things, like to see someone like you, for someone like me or others that are listening, that want to like shift how they see themselves and see this possibility. And I know you're not woo, but I have to say, what I'm hearing from over here is you are tapping into this idea, this notion that there is infinite abundance and money and prosperity, that it's not like you have it and now I can't, like it's
Yeah.
for all of us. And that you sharing your statements, I'm like, girl, keep doing that. I want to see that, because that's for people like me, you know?
Yeah, and it took me time to realize about this abundance. So when I first started out, I would look at other women doing better than me, making more money than me, and I would feel jealous. I would feel envy. I would be like, oh, why she? I don't, almost like I don't want her to do well, as if she's doing well, somebody's giving her money, that money isn't coming to me. And then I learned that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if she has millions of pounds. I can still have millions of pounds. We all can do the things, make the money we need to make if we want to. We just have to put some stuff into action to do it.
Yeah.
And that changed everything, because it's lovely then, because you don't feel in competition with anyone ever. You want everyone
Mm.
to do well when you realize that it doesn't matter if they do.
Right. There's nothing taken away. In fact, it's actually like it's evidence. That's for me. It's always like, damn, that's evidence. Like, I remember when I first started, I'm sure you know Marie Forleo. I like did some of her programs and work, and I was like, that girl, she started from Jersey, like with nothing. Like, okay, all right. And then others that have done that, and I remember with your story, it's so inspiring, and it is important. It's like, just to remember, that jealousy is just that indication that there's the belief that I can't have that. And I've struggled with that. I felt that before. And you realize, and I just think you're such a champion for authenticity, and like, here's what it is and here is what's possible. um yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that integrity and authenticity. I know you're known for just like calling bullshit, being like, nope, I'm going to say what is, which I so appreciate. I love that about you. Maybe share a little bit about like what that looks like, how that comes across, in any examples.
And the reason this happened was, in the first year of having a business, I paid a coach a very large amount of money. It was around 30,000, which in your first year in business is a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah.
And she was ballsy, and I was like, well, I want to work with someone like that. She seems to know what she's doing. She's making a lot more money than me. And that coach went on to bully me really badly online, like was threatened, I think, by me. And so got all of her well-known friends and decided to like try and get rid of me out of the industry. And there was a whole weekend once where there were threads in multiple Facebook groups about how, not mentioning me, but everyone knew it was me, like about how awful I was, and I was lying about money and all of these things. And my immediate reaction from having been bullied at school was, oh no, it's happening again. Like, go and hide, just hide. You don't want to be in this industry. And then, that was the first thing that happened to me. And I spoke to somebody at the time who said, no, like, don't let things like this, you've been through worse, like get out there and get it back on track. And so I did. And then I kept seeing other things in the industry, like people who were in masterminds with me who were, let's say they're selling evergreen.
Yeah.
And they're saying, I'm selling this evergreen program, but in all honesty, I'm not making any money from evergreens. I'm going to have to launch it. And it seemed so incongruous that these people were lying about things just to make money. And to me, that was like, I couldn't believe that this was a thing that was happening online, all this smoke and mirrors and, and then I saw things like invisible offers where people would say, well, the price is going up the next day and the next day and the next day. And it's like trauma marketing, FOMO marketing, anything you can to get money. And I realized I didn't want to be in the industry. I was like, I felt like a bank robber that didn't believe in crime. Like, I don't want to be part of something that feels bad. Yes, there are some good people out there, but there's a lot of dodginess going on. And I spoke to somebody who said to me, okay, you're in your first like year and a half. You can either quit now, or you can change it from the inside out. But you can only change it from the inside out by making so much money that people listen to you, and you make that money in a different way, in a way that's really in integrity and that people see that. And then they'll listen to you, and then you will have a ripple effect, because how you do things is how others will. And the reason why there are not so, ethical coaches is because they're just taught that way by the people who teach them. And so I thought, this is something I can do. And that's been my whole purpose. So, you know, I've got to this figure, but I've never used anything that's not in integrity in business. And each time I break down a launch, I kind of show people what we didn't do, not just what we did do, and how it still worked. And I'm starting to see that ripple effect of people making money in a different way now. And I think that's brilliant. That's what I've always wanted to do.
I want to, first of all, I have to just say, as somebody who in the coaching industry, I, got a master's degree in it. I teach at Georgetown. I've been doing it for a long time. I obviously not condoning. I mean, when I hear that, I'm like, oh gosh, it makes me so angry and upset, because it really puts such a negative spin on that whole industry. And if you're really trained to know what you're doing, you would never do that. Never. It's, in fact, you don't give advice. You actually listen and honor the person. So I'm so sorry you went through that. I'm sure I'm sure that since
when I
then,
look back, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because
yeah.
when she, like, all I needed was the sentence. She gave me a sentence once, which was like, I'm going to make sure you never work in this industry again. That is all I needed to make 8 figures.
Oh
If
my
someone
gosh,
tells me I can't do something, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. So in a way, it was like
Help.
your fertilizer. Yeah.
Massively worth the 30,000.
Wow. Yeah. And I want to say, for anyone that's in a situation, maybe not the same, but where it's challenging, or someone says something to you like that, like, Lisa, thank you, because what you're saying is, like, go and take the driver's seat again, like, go get empowered, and for yourself, realize, no, that's not how we're doing things. I'm going to actually really, really do well. And what I love about you is you're teaching others how to do this. Let's like talk for a minute. I'm like, yeah, talk about this, like, golden key, what you figured out, what you teach. I mean, I know you can't do it all in, like, the time we have, but you can start.
I mean, things have changed recently, but the first thing I realized after that first year is you have to have a business model that works for you. Now, what most of us do is we look at somebody online and we go, well, that person is doing it like this, so I'll just do it exactly the same way. Yes. And then they don't understand why it's not working for them. Why aren't they getting the same results as that person? Why does it feel hard to them when this other person is saying it's easy? And it's usually because we're not using our own strengths or skills or the way we want to work, because we feel like we have to do it a certain way. In business, there is a million ways to make £1 million. You don't need to all be doing the same one. Like, you find the business model that works for you. For me, I realized very quickly, I hate one-to-one. I don't like doing one-to-one. I've never enjoyed it. And yet I was doing it because that's what everyone was doing. And so then I thought, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go straight into a kind of one-to-many model, so that it becomes a lot more passive. And it just changed the game. Like, having a business model that I loved and that I was excited about every day. And I think that my biggest realization, like, especially over the last year, because that worked, and then I added other things on and had another business model and diversified, and it just was lovely, and it worked really well. Nothing felt really difficult. It was fine, and helped other people doing the same thing, but they had different business models to me a lot of the time, because they didn't want to do, I have a Facebook group, they didn't want a Facebook group. Fine, let's find another way that works for you. So I did that for a while, and then I realized this year that just because we can make a lot of money doesn't necessarily mean we should. I feel like we're told on the internet, especially, a version of success that is wholly financial. Get to 6 figures, get to 7 figures, get to 8 figures, get in Forbes, get invited to NECA, get a #1 podcast. It's like there's a prescribed list that we're ticking off. And I was ticking all the things off. So I was saying, this is fine. I got a book deal, I got all the things. And then it occurred to me that it doesn't matter how much of this stuff we tick off, we're never going to feel really fulfilled and really content unless what we're doing is our version of what success is. And I think half the time we don't even stop to think what our version of success is, because we're too busy doing the thing that everybody else is telling us is what success is. And I started to look at people that I had looked up to for years in this industry, thinking, I want to be just like them. look how they're doing all this stuff, and look online, and this great show reel, this great curated life that they have online. But the nearer I got to them, the more I realized they were really unhappy. That they were physically unhappy and didn't want to be doing the thing that they were doing, but it was making them so much money that they couldn't stop. And they'd had relationship breaks down and like health issues and all of these different things because they were so fixated on this one part of success. And it made me stop and go, what is success to me? Is this actually success? What did I do it for in the first place? Because, you can have all the money in the world and be unhappy, or you can have a very small amount of money that is great for you, but be really happy. So actually, what we need to do is stop chasing the money and start chasing the happiness. And so I decided to work on what makes me happy. And what makes me happy is being around friends. And yeah, I do like the odd luxury thing, and that's okay. I love going on that yacht and I want to do it again. And there are definitely things, opportunities that money can bring that make me happy, but it certainly isn't the be all and end all. And I think that we need to stop chasing these figures and chasing the things, because now I look back, having done them all, I don't remember the day that I hit 7 figures. I don't remember what I was doing that day. I don't remember the day that my podcast got to #1 in the UK business charts. I remember working up to it and how fun it was. I remember being with lots of people in networking meetings talking about how we're going to get to 7 figures. They're the bits you remember, the in between. And yet we're so busy chasing the next thing that we're not even present in the between. And so, yeah, it's changed a lot for me.
This is such really like distilled wisdom. And as somebody who in a similar kind of industry, but I've heard all those things, right? And I got to tell you, right? You got to be careful because it could feel like a failure. I mean, I'm in love with my podcast. I love doing this. I love the people I'm interviewing. I literally, and in some ways it's not exactly monetized. That's not even why I started it. I mean, clients and things have come out of it, but I freaking love it. And it's like, stay in that, will it get to #1? I don't know. That's where I come into my woo. I got to be honest. I'm like, the divine knows. I don't know. I'm going to just do, but I love what you said, like chase your happiness, chase. That's really important because I think what we often misconstrue is money is a direct line to happiness. Sure, it can buy experiences. It could be, I mean, I'll tell you, I'm like, you want to bring in some more peeps on your boat in Greece? I will join. That sounds so fun. I love Greece. However, those things are fun and they bring happiness, and that's fantastic. And I'm sure you helping others get to 7 figures, like you said, the in between, we got to really, and it comes back down to being present and being really, really clear. I think this question you asked, I'm going to make sure we have this in the show notes. What does success really mean to you? The other thing, Lisa, I think it's important is you got real clear. You do not love one-to-ones. And that model, like the model that matched you and your energy and your strengths, is now one that you can grow with. And so for anyone if you're listening, you're like, oh shit, I'm not exactly, well, that's okay. Like that question you said, really ask yourself, what does success mean to you? What does that look like to you? And be honest about it. Right. And for some, it might be a hybrid. Like I still like one-on-ones and I love one-to-many. It's okay. You can find hybrids. It's all right.
You can do different things. And success for one person might be, I want to stay at home with my kids for 2 days a week. Yeah. It doesn't have to be this massive amount of money. It's just that we get onto a train, I think, that we don't really know how to jump off of because it becomes slightly addictive to our money.
Yeah. I want to talk about, because I know you said you're open book, and I'm going to go there then. I know recently we're talking about all those things, like, being in Forbes and being invited to do this talk and Necker Island, which, there's like a little part of me that's like, oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. I also know he has like the biggest turtles ever, and I love turtles. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but I would love to talk a little bit about, your recent decision. You were invited and chose for now. Well, you can tell everyone why you chose to pause on that.
Go, but it was, I'd love to go and see Necker Island. I want to see the turtles too. Like those kind of things are great, and I go to some great places that have those things. But I was supposed to be going with a mastermind group of women, some of who are really close friends of mine, who I really, really love, and some of who practice some pretty dodgy stuff that I don't want to be associated with. But when people do things like whether they go to NECA or they're on people's stages, there's a lot of inauthenticity in it. It's like you will be pictured with people that maybe you don't agree with their values, but you know, there'll be a heading going like besties on the beach or whatever. And I've never really enjoyed that kind of fakeness in things. And so I was already feeling a little bit weird about like, I'm going to be photographed with people that I don't share those values and I don't want people to think I do. There was definitely some people going with that. There were also some people going that I absolutely love, and I wanted to go and hang out with them and do fun things. And so I was going to go. And then I was actually on the yacht at the time. My husband got cancer and he had to go into hospital for a cancer operation to remove his prostate. And he's only 52. Like, so he was going in, and the whole thing was he was going to go into hospital, he was going to recover, and I was still going to go to NECA, like, because you know, it's a lot of money when you get invited, you pay a lot of money to go. He obviously couldn't go, but I was still going to go. And then I was on the boat, and all of the people on the boat were friends from before in this industry. So, you know, they don't care how much money I'm earning. They will still be as awful to me as they were before and take them mickey and all of those kind of things. They just don't care. They're true friends. And one of them was talking about how the weekend after, or 2 weekends after, while I would be like with Richard Branson in NECA, he would be in the local Chinese restaurant with all of our friends where we grew up, you know, just having a laugh very cheaply. And I sat there and realized that I had my priorities all wrong. Like in that second, I knew that I was going there to be seen. I was going there so that people would go, oh, look at Lisa hanging around with all of those people that are really well known. You know, look at Lisa who's been invited to something. It wasn't about that for me, and it had become about it, and I really didn't want it to be. And so I had to make this decision, like, I can't go. Like, it's more important for me to be there with my husband who's going through cancer treatment. I want to be in that Chinese restaurant with my true friends who really care about me. I don't need to be seen by anyone. Why was I like looking for this external validation from other people that I have made it in some way, when actually that wasn't my version of success. It was what the industry had started to make me believe was success.
Yeah, I'm just like, pause. Like that is just beautiful wisdom. Honestly, what I'm hearing underneath that, like unpacking that is, you know, there was some ego in there, which I gotta say, when I start to see, you know, it's like we get a choice, right? Is my ego going to play with those egos, or am I going to choose, you know, authenticity and soul and what feels right, and supporting your husband and his treatment, being with friends at like a really like, you know, maybe like, I don't know, sleazy Chinese, I don't know if it's sleazy, but like, you know, fun back alley Chinese restaurant, which by the way are some of my favorites growing up. Yeah, there was one in Boston. I don't think it's there anymore, but it's like the most amazing ever. So what I heard was, and I think for all of us, this is like in every moment we get this opportunity, it was like, do I follow ego, you know, that need to be seen, that external validation, right? Or am I going to choose like what's true? And I got to tell you, girl, like high five to you. Some people would not have had the inner resolve or self-awareness to do that. I just love how you're like, yeah, no, that is not important to me.
No.
And I
Like
go ahead.
It felt like I was choosing between money and what I actually loved, because I knew that by going there and you know, audiences would be shared with me just by tagging me on Instagram and things like that, and just because of how people would look up to, you know, look at all of those women, those successful people, it would mean more money, more people would pay me, more people would come into my world, more audience would, and therefore I would get paid more. So it felt like I was choosing between that and just being real. And I don't want to choose money over, you know, I've always said morals over money every time. And it felt like I wouldn't be choosing that if I chose not to be authentic. And then if you do that, that's when your real whole sense of self will fall down.
Yeah.
Because if you don't live to those values that you've always had,
Yeah.
then who are you anymore?
Mm, yeah. Yeah. I'm even thinking back, this is how I can tell you've done so much inner work as well, just coming from where you were bullied. Like I could imagine there might have been a part of you way back when that'd be like, look, see, I made it. I know what that's like, right? It's like, see, you're wrong. And what I can tell is the healing and yeah, just really getting, what's most important to me, as you said, that morals over money. And this was like, maybe you look at it as a test, like an opportunity. You really were face to face. I mean, I could see you going to Necker Island. What would be really cool when you do go is going and feeling like, yep, this is the time that I want to be here.
How I'm going to go, I'm going to go and I'm going to take those people that were in the Chinese restaurant with me. That's how we're
Oh,
going.
amazing. I love it. We should talk after that. There you go. Yeah. The people that and I've heard Jamie Kern Lima, who's talked a lot with it, yeah, cosmetics. And I mean, Oprah's talked a lot about this. Like, who are the ones that were like with you when the limo broke down? Like, who are the ones that love you and have seen you at everything? You could care less how much is in your bank account. That's who we want around us.
That's right.
Yeah. I think what I'm hearing too, in even like what you were talking about with being successful in business, there's a common thread here, Lisa, and it really is like honoring who you are, your strengths, like what works for you. And to me, I mean, I would use the word alignment for that.
Yeah.
And when I'm just hearing like you've decided, oh, I'm choosing to do life in alignment at this point in my life.
Yeah. It feels like that very much this year. Like
Yeah.
it felt like I thought everything was in alignment, but then I felt suddenly like it wasn't, and that I'd kind of been just doing all the things. I think
Mm.
sometimes we can block everything out when everything's going well in business. Like we don't need to think about anything else. Let's just do this is working. Just carry on.
Yeah.
Because money's important and we love it, and we want to get more of it, and then we can give more of it away, and all of those things are great.
Yeah.
But I think that you can make money and find the true you and the true happiness. I don't think that you have to give up one without the other. I just think it's easy to do.
Yeah. 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 What I've understood and experienced a little is the more money you have, the more opportunities you have to make choices of, is this going to be honoring me? Right. What I call like your Youest You, or is it going to be the part that needs the validation, the ego? And you have more and more of those choices, the more you're making, because you have more probably opportunities. And I think for all of us to really look at that question.
Yeah, you're very right. And I think if we did that, there will be less people leaving the industries they're in, or
Yep.
feeling like they've made it in some way, but their health is suffering, or they've made it and they've gone through divorces, or, they've made it and they don't love what they do. Like we'd have less of that because we'd be concentrating on making the money through the right way for them.
Yeah. I think the truth is too, with what you're saying, and I relate to this, it's just about, right, there's this empowered choice, and am I going to do the path that might be, you have to have some courage and some trust. That actually tells me your mindset has shifted quite a bit to be able to be, say like, no, I'm not going to go, even though that would bring more money and likes and all, and the fame and all of that. And there's some trust in there, and there's some courage. And I think, in a way, it would have been easier to just go on the trip.
So much easier.
Yeah. Yeah. So much easier. And frankly, like no one would question that. Like, great, you got invited. That's amazing. Probably a lot of pat on the backs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm such a stand for this in all areas of life, like what you're talking about. I'm so on the same page, whether it's staying or not staying in a marriage that doesn't work, whether it's, looking to see, is that choice really going to honor my values? And, what I'm hearing is a lot of your success actually comes from honoring your values.
It does. And at the time, I don't know that that's what's happening.
Yeah.
So there's been times when I've gone, I'm going to have to do this. And it's probably the wrong choice, and it's probably going to lose me things. But when I look back, honoring the values has been for instance, a year ago, I got a book deal. someone called me up and said it was one of the top 3 publishers in the world and said, we want you to write a book. And I was like, what? Like, because they'd heard my podcast and I loved them. And the person that, you know, had a really good vision for my book and was like, we would love you to do this, we want to get your message out, really down to earth, really nice person. And then another one of the top 3 publishers called me 1 week later, said, we want you to write your book, and we'll give you more money, and we will give you fame, we will put you on television, we will do all of these things. My head is like, oh, I want all of those things, like all of those great things. My values are, you're looking to impact more people. The person that is going to help you impact more people is this person over here, not the one that's going to give you all the fame and all the fun stuff. It's this person. I went with her going, well, I have to go with my values. Might be the wrong choice. It was completely the right choice. My book came out 2 days ago for pre-order, and it went to number 67 of all books on Amazon. Not like a non-fiction chart, all books, because they believed in it. I believed in this book, and it just worked because it was in alignment. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. Share with us the title, because this is going to be
It's a really easy title.
Yeah.
Make money online.
Make money online.
Yeah.
Girl, you've got it covered with like simple, powerful. I could use a lot more of that. I tend to go into all the words and I'm like, no, this is just tells you what it is. That's fantastic. I will be buying that on Amazon. Pre-ordering. I'm going to tell everyone, hello. Don't you love Lisa? Like, this is if you want to make money online, you got to buy that book. Oh my gosh, I always, I know having met you through Selena's group, and I loved your energy right away. I always follow that. And I was like, who is this? Like, you're so real. And I'm really appreciating you, and you're staying true to your authenticity, to your values, to who you are, to, that whole world of integrity. And everyone defines that different, and just understanding where you come from to where you are today. I so like honor and applaud you. And I feel like this to me is so inspiring. It makes me want to look at like making sure I'm 100% in alignment with my values, and sure for you listener, for you too. And just appreciate you like as a powerhouse, successful woman who's got integrity and values and is willing to stand up and say like, nope, not doing that. I really like, I acknowledge you. I think we need more of you in this world.
I think that we all have the ability to put out a ripple effect, and everything we do, we should be thinking, what is that ripple effect that's going to those watching us right now? And, sometimes that means doing difficult things other people might not like, but think about what ripple effect you want to make in the world, what difference you want to make, and do things based on that.
Beautiful. Lisa, like I was going to say, is there anything else you want to share? I'm like, I think that is it. Like that, that actually helps to dissolve imposter syndrome and doubt. And because what you really hear in that is, it's not about you anyhow. It is. And I so wholeheartedly feel this way. I'm with you on that. It's how am I going to make a bigger impact and be of service in the greatest way possible? That's your North Star is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Well, I want to thank you. You are such a gem. I love, love, love your energy. I'm so grateful to have you here. This show is all about being your Youest You, really honoring that alignment. And what a gift. I'm excited to watch what happens with you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been really fun.
Yay. Well, I want to thank you, my dear listener, as well, for being here, and definitely go check out. You must check out Lisa's book. I love it. It's so easy to remember. Make Money Online. Such a good title. And, just hope that you really sit with some of these questions, right? Around your values, around what does success mean to you? What's an integrity for you? And how can you be of greater service? And I want to honor you. And if there's any time or chance or way that I can be of greater service to you, please let me know. I am here as well, cheering you on to be your Youest You. Lots of love.